It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Welcome back to Confidence in Bloom, the podcast for women who are ready to move forward with clarity, courage, and commitment. This season, Determined, Not Distracted, is all about purposeful action, resilience, and staying connected to what truly matters. Today's conversation explores a powerful and often overlooked path to confidence, creativity. I'm joined by Tamara Newton, the creative force behind Creative Spark Art, a mobile paint party and art workshop business bringing vibrant, hands-on art experiences to people of all ages. Tamara believes creativity isn't a luxury, it's a human right and an essential part of our well-being. She's also a tattoo artist at the Incantations Electric Tattoo and a passionate supporter of animal rescue organizations. Together, we're talking about the happiness of creating, why so many adults disconnect from creativity, and how reclaiming it can transform confidence, mindset, and emotional well-being. If you've ever thought, I'm not creative, this episode is for you. Welcome, Tamara.
Hello. Thanks
Awesome.
for having me.
So excited. I'm so excited. So I'm one of those people that says I am not creative. So this conversation is going to be super, super intriguing for me. I can already feel it.
Awesome.
Now, I'm going to start with you feel that, or you believe that creativity is a human right. Why do you feel it's so closely tied to happiness and well-being?
Well, I think that creativity is so important, and it's something that we don't value as much in today's society as we do. You know, we're always caught up with busyness in the world, and creativity helps us just get that moment to ourselves. It helps us to get out of the hustle bustle of the daily world and just get back to ourselves. And I think that it's so important that we do something creative, that everybody is doing a creative act in some way or another. It doesn't necessarily have to be art, but in creativity is happiness. There is happiness in just letting go. Even if you're just doodling circles on a pad of paper, there are studies that show that actually reduces like 25% of stress within 10 minutes of doodling on a piece of paper. And there's a joy that springs when you make something and you made that yourself and you're like, so proud of that. I did that. And it may be, like I said, it doesn't always have to be art. It could be as simple as maybe you plate your food differently for your family at nighttime. You sprinkle the microgreens on. You do something that looks really beautiful. And that also could be an act of creativity where you just are using the right side of your brain, which in our world, we use a lot of the left side of our brain.
It's funny that you say it that way, because I'm thinking what came to my mind was I'm not artistic, right? Like if you gave me a piece of paper and a pen and said, draw me a picture, you're getting a stick man, right? Like that's the best I can do. Right. But at the same time, I got to thinking, well, I'm kind of a systems person, right? And so, I can get creative in making up a system. Right? Creative doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be art. It's basically just the way you create, like you do things. It's just creating.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, so the light bulb is starting to come on. So do you think then that humans are wired to create?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, we live in a world of creation, right? So, I mean, creation is so much a part of who we are. I mean, all you have to do is look at a child, and they are the most creative beings in the whole world. They live in their own fantasy world. They've got friends, they're making things, they've got a whole story about every little thing that they're doing, which is so beautiful. And I like to quote Picasso because he says, every child is an artist, and it's how to remain an artist once he's grown up. And I think we put art on the back burner as we get older. And yeah, I think it's really important to reactivate that. And I do believe that we are wired if we give ourselves permission to create.
Yeah, I like that you added that, because I think that kind of leads us into my next question is what happens when we suppress that creative instinct?
Well, I can speak from my own experience. When I was in school, I was always an arty kid. I loved making art. And then when I graduated, it was like the world told me, you can't make a living doing art. You need to, do administration. Sorry, my cat. Benjamin, come here, butts. I couldn't make a living doing art. I had to work in administration or work in a restaurant or find a real job. And so I shut off my creativity for a long time. And I became quite depressed. I became bitter. And I just felt lost, really. I would flip-flop from job to job going, okay, I'll try this for, 6 months or a year. Just not happy. So I try a different career or a different path. Still not finding what was bringing me joy. And so I think that, we can I think it can cause depression to not be creative. And in fact, there's many, many studies done where people that do something creative feel better. They just do. Like, I like to joke and say the paintbrush can replace your therapist.
I love that.
If you take it and use that as a creative outlet, but we're lost. We're stuck in the world of perfection, right? Everything's got to be perfect. I have to replicate this perfectly instead of just allowing yourself to just to create it without a plan of what you're going to make.
I actually really love that. So I noticed that when my daughter starts to feel kind of low, she sets a day aside in the week to paint or draw.
Oh,
right. I'll message her and I'll say, are you coming over today? Or do you want to come over? And she'll be like, no, I need the evening tonight I'm going to just paint or I'm going to draw. Right. Actually, and she'll say, I'm going to do some art. Right. And so because that's not me. Right. I don't do that stuff. I find that odd. Right. I'm like, what? You're going to take the evening to do art? But when I go to her place, she's got her own art all over the house. Right.
Amazing.
And it's so inspiring because I think when she looks at it and says, oh, I'm going to add this to it. Or I'm going to, this would go really good beside it. Or, oh, I don't like that. I'm going to do something else next. I don't do that. Right. I love to decorate my house. Right. And maybe it's the same thing. I'm not really sure. Maybe you can even help me, decide that. But often I'll, I'll move this from, have a few vases here and I'll move them over to the other side of the house. And, that's how I get creative. So I'm not really sure, but I like that you said what you said.
Thank you.
How has your own relationship with creativity evolved over the years? I mean, you said, that you went job to job, but how did you figure out, that it was creativity that you needed?
Yeah. So like I was saying in the last part was I had gotten bitter and depressed and just wasn't feeling, working on these jobs that were unfulfilling for me. And so I had a friend and she was going to the U of A for art. And I mean, I can't say that I didn't do anything creative in that time. I scrapbooked and I did other little things, but I wasn't really creating art from the heart. And so I had a friend, she was at the U of A and she had all this art supplies laying around her house one day. And, I just decided, she's like, hey, you want to paint? And I was like, sure. And the second I picked up the paintbrush, it was like something exploded inside of me. I fell so in love with it. I almost couldn't stop. I was just, swatching colors on the canvas, playing around, manipulating the paint. And I was like, why haven't I done this for so long? Why have I denied this for myself? And so after that, I just, I don't like to use the word obsessed, but I became obsessed with art. I started painting, I started doodling. I eventually started doing art for festivals, for music festivals, doing live art. So painting canvases in front of a big group of people. Then I started to do doing props for festivals. So we were one of the festivals I did, we recreated a Mayan temple. And so we painted all this Mayan artwork and carved styrofoam and did all this amazing stuff. And then I started tattooing. And so I started to tattoo. And then eventually I started to teach people how to paint and do different styles of art. So now that's what I do.
I love that. I mean, I'm not a big tattoo fan, I'll be totally honest, but I know that in today's day and age, you kind of have to like the tattoos to some degree, right? Because, I mean, quite honestly, every second person that you see now has a tattoo.
Yes, it's very popular now. It wasn't, even 20 years ago, it was kind of the alternative community had them, but it wasn't so mainstream. And now you see a lot of people do have tattoos now.
Yeah. It's very common now. Yeah. So like me, like I always say that I'm not creative. And I mean, maybe I've kind of touched on something that makes me believe differently, but why do you think so many adults today believe that we're not creative? And where do you think that belief might come from?
I think the belief comes from, I think it comes from a couple things. I think it comes from when you're younger, where you're either comparing yourself to other people going, oh, well, they can do it so much better than me. And I was guilty of that in high school, too. I worked beside a gentleman who at 16 was already apprenticing to become a tattoo artist. And his art was amazing. And I was like, oh, he's so good. I'm not that good. So I think there's like the comparison. I think also there's somebody telling you, that your art isn't good or grading you on your art negatively. Or sometimes it could be just a simple one word that can turn people off from expressing themselves in that way. And the other thing I think is perfectionism, needing to have it perfect and not allowing yourself, as Bob Ross would say, have happy little accidents.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, as any other limiting belief, right? It could be, like you said, just one word that someone has said to you at one point in your life. And you're like, oh, so I'm not creative. I don't do that well.
Yes, that's right. And I think in school, too, I don't believe that art should be graded. I don't believe if you're in an art class in middle school or high school that you should be getting A's for, being a really good artist, and somebody that's maybe struggling is getting a D. I believe that art should be based on your participation. If you're participating in the class and you're doing the project, I believe you should get a grade, a passing. And it should be like, oh, obviously you can look at art and be like, oh, wow, that girl's really good. But when a teacher is like, well, you're kind of not doing this right. And it's like, well, they're trying. And that's what I think matters.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Exactly.
Right? So how do I grade an art piece when, maybe she did everything that came to her mind, right? She put everything into it and this is what came out of it. Right. Yeah, I have to agree. And that's also like the perfectionism again, right? Like how are we supposed to, judge that as perfect when, in your eyes it might be perfect, in my eyes it's not.
Well, and, so often in my classes, people, you always have the one or two that's like already judging themselves before we've even gotten started, or they're like, it's not perfect, and I always say at the beginning of the class, check the perfectionist at the door. Like leave the perfectionist at the door and just explore and have fun. I mean, not everybody's going to replicate the picture exactly. For example, I had just taught a class and the one girl, she was so upset. She liked mine better. And I liked hers. I thought she did really good. I mean, of course, I'm the teacher. I painted that picture 100 times, so mine's going to look better, right? But in the end, she really wanted my painting. And so I ended up giving it to her. But I tried to talk her out of it. I said, like, your painting is really good. And then sometimes people will be like, oh, you're just saying that because you have to say that to everybody. And it's not that way. It's everybody, just by the act of participation, you're doing something. You're stepping boldly and bravely into a spot maybe you're really uncomfortable in. And I think that takes a lot of courage to do that.
I have to agree. And that's a pure example too of how perfectionism can steal the joy from the process. If you don't trust in yourself, or if you feel that you cannot be perfect, there goes your joy right out the window.
Yeah. And it becomes a stressful situation, not a fun situation.
Right. That's almost sad, but I can relate with that woman because I think I've done that at a painting class.
Yeah. Well, even like at pottery, when I started doing pottery, I mean, pottery is quite difficult to learn, especially when you're creating on the wheel. And my teacher's like, if it can hold salsa, it's good.
That's a good one. I love salsa. Yeah, that's a great one. So
Yeah.
I wonder then, like if like I'll walk into an art room or an art class, and I'll say, "Oh, I'm totally going to do this wrong." I already have that in my mind when I
Yeah.
walk in, and I know that there's others that are very similar as me. What would you say to someone who feels like intimidated by the class, or even just afraid to get it wrong?
If you're walking into a class like that, I mean, I think for one thing is if you're struggling, it's maybe try to sit towards the back. I find that a lot of people, if they are struggling, if they're right at the front where everybody can see them, it makes them more intimidated.
Mm.
And I think also, express that to whoever's teaching the class. Just say, hey, I'm kind of nervous here. Because once the person, like for myself, once we know that you're intimidated, we can give you extra special care. Like we can come over, help you, make sure we're showing you everything really close up so you can feel a little bit more confident with exploring on your own.
And trust that you might do it for me.
I rarely do it for them, but every once in a while, if they're getting really frustrated, I will give them a little bit of a hand. But I like to sometimes it's a matter of just how you're holding the paintbrush. It could just be how you're, the stroke or the pressure that you're doing. And all that needs is a little shift. And we can, I can come over and show you, hey, just hold the paintbrush like this. And then all of a sudden they're doing it on their own.
So sometimes it's just like a little tweak like that. I love that.
Tweak. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure you're going to answer yes to this, but I'm wondering, have you ever witnessed like someone's mood change, like while they're being creative? Like, do they become more confident, or do they have like a mindset shift that's happening like right before your eyes?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I've seen it go in both directions, but mostly it goes in the positive direction. So you'll have the person come in that's intimidated. They've never even held a paintbrush or drawn a picture in their life. And when they get that extra special guidance, they're able to excel. And by the end, I've had people totally shocked that they were able to do that. They're like, wow, I did not think I was going to be able to do this. And so that mood shift usually happens with it for a few people are quite surprised by the end of the class that they were successful. And then occasionally you have the person that came and now they're frustrated and they're just getting more and more frustrated. And there's not much you can do about those type of situations except for just to keep on encouraging them and encourage them to try again, right? Because sometimes, for example, I'm going to talk about pottery again. I took probably 20 classes before I was able to pull a wall, which is when you create a cylinder. And it's quite difficult to do, but I kept on doing it. I kept on trying because I knew I wanted to learn. And not only that, I really didn't care that I wasn't creating something perfect. For me, it was just a place for me to be creative without the expectation of perfection, especially with my job tattooing. Like I have to be perfect when I'm tattooing. But with pottery, I can be messy. And if the bowl's wonky, the bowl's wonky and you just go with it.
Yeah, so. And if it holds salsa, it's good. I have a bowl. I have a bowl that I made it was like on a retreat, and we did a pottery class, and I made this bowl. And I remember before it went into the oven, the kiln, I was like, oh God, this is one ugly bowl. What am I ever going to do with it? And when it came out, I was like, this isn't the same bowl. Like it's so beautiful. Like when I take it, like I use it all the time now because it's so pretty, right?
And
this is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that somebody switched it on me because I'm pretty sure it didn't look like this before it went in. But, I wanted to make a comment too on the, I did a paint night where it was like a ladies' night, and I had zero confidence in myself. Like I came home and I was like really feeling like blue because I thought I should not have been in this class. And my husband was like, oh my God, what's wrong? What happened? Right. And I showed him, I said, look at the disaster that I made. And he just looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, Tina, Like, that's really good. And I was like, I don't think so. He put it up, like he took it from my hands
Oh,
and he put it up in our living room and he would not let me move it. I bet you it was up for a good 6 to 8 months because he was like, you
wow.
need to show this off. I'm like, that is hideous.
Again, that's our, it's how we perceive it, right? So
Yeah.
somebody else could see beauty in it. And again, it goes back to the comparison. And I find that that's what happens a lot at like a paint night, for example, is you're around 20 other people. Everybody's creating. Some people are amazing. Some people struggle. And some people are just not happy with what they've created. And so you're going to have all those. But, if you took another painting class, then you would be like, oh, I remember how we did this. Okay, it's easier for me the second time around, the third time around. Just like it's easier on the 20th pottery class for me than it was on the first pottery class where I
Yeah.
couldn't even do anything. So, yeah. And I like to always encourage my clients and my customers when we do a paint night, like wait till you get home and wake up tomorrow and then look at your painting with fresh eyes when you don't have a room full of paintings and my paintings as well to compare to, and get a fresh look and just no matter what, just love that you created something, just like you love that pottery that you didn't love, but you made it. So it's something that you did with your heart. And I think that that's what we should focus on more than replicating a pretty picture.
Yes, I have to agree. And I also think it comes down to giving yourself permission to, right? Like giving
Yes.
yourself the permission to be okay with whatever's going to come out, right? Just put your hands to the paint or your hands to the paper, whatever it is that you're creating, and allow whatever, is going to be to be.
Right. Exactly. Just like Bob Ross said, happy little accidents. Just go for it, right? Just have
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And so have you witnessed that where, a woman will come in and says, I don't think I'm very creative, but I'm going to give myself the permission to
Yes.
be here and to give it whatever I have.
Yeah, I mean, I see that it's a common story, but I specifically remember this one little lady. She was a senior. She came in. She was quite nervous. Never had drawn a stick figure. Didn't think she could do it. And so of course, because she told me that, I knew she was going to have some challenges. So I just kept on checking in on her through the whole thing. How you doing? Do you need any help? And by the end of it, I mean, I just seen this little lady just light up because she had created something that she didn't think she could. Was it perfect? No. But did it need to be perfect? No. She had done something and she was proud of herself. And in fact, she came to another one of my class a couple months later and she had like started painting birdhouses. She went to the dollar store. She bought brushes and canvases and she was just playing and she just, to have that kind of awakening, especially, if you've lived your whole life never trying something creative, it was just beautiful. I almost tear up every time I think of it. And I think that those people touch me so deeply because I'm seeing myself in them. I'm seeing this person who was bitter. And like, I remember in my 20s, walking around, I see people doing art and I'd be like, artists, right? Because I was denying myself. And because I denied myself, it like art just irritated me because I was like, I have to do administrative work. I have to be this cubicle worker type of person. Well, that doesn't fit my personality. And so when I picked up that paintbrush and started painting, it was like something clicked on. The creative spark opened, it clicked on, and it's been open now for it's been like 20 years, almost 30 years, I'd say 25 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I actually love that. And I think that today, I mean, I'd like to believe anyway that today the world is a little bit different as far as allowing our young people to do what truly lights
Yeah.
them up, right?
Yeah.
Like I think, like I know when my kids were growing up, of course I wanted them to have professional jobs, but when the time came, what I wanted more was for them to be happy. And if that meant, doing something, creative, like, being an artist, then you got to do your best. But, just know that I can't support you, forever.
Yes. I think I agree with that. Like in the last 20 years, the shift towards even just art being honored. I mean, not that it wasn't honored in the past, but it wasn't like a career, it was far and few between, but with the computers and the internet and graphic design and web design and all these other, arts become more valuable in terms of a career path now than it used to be.
And I think, like I said at the very beginning of our conversation, it's not necessarily that creativity is art, right? Like you can do, I don't know how a doctor works, but I'm sure there's ways of being creative in your field, whatever your field may be.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Creativity, I've done a lot of talking on like creativity and how it relates to business as well, because people hear the word creativity and they automatically think, oh, it's art, but isn't necessarily, because creativity is like how you work with your customers, how you come up with new innovations, how you come up with new ideas, how you support your employees to also be creative in their thinking outside the box, and all these things. They're so important that we value creativity in the workplace, in business, in leadership. Absolutely, just a very, very important.
Yeah, and like you said, thinking out of the box. That's a cue, right? That's like, get creative, right?
Yeah.
Think outside of the box. Yeah. I have one last question.
Sure.
When you think about the happiness of creating, what does that mean to you personally? And how do you think women can bring more of that into their daily lives?
When I think of the happiness of creating, I think of joy, I think of contentment, and I think of peace. Because when you're in the creative mindset, it's like all that left brain stuff is switched down and all your right brain stuff is switched out. And you kind of just fall into the process of whatever it is that you're creating. And I think it's just such an important time to get out of that like bubble of the world and anything that's like negative in your life and just get into this bubble of creativity. So that is like the joy that springs from your heart. And the peace that you find residing in that space. And I think women can bring that into their lives in multiple different ways. I think you could just start off by recognizing that cooking dinner is an act of creation. The way you plate your food, the way you landscape your garden, how you set your flowers out in the garden, those are all acts of creation. How you style your clothes and how you put on your makeup, it's also an act of creation. And I think we need to honor all the little bits of creation and the little steps of creation that we do each day as something special, and then try something new. This is, if you've never done pottery, try it. If you want to take like a different kind of like a watercolor class, try it. If you want to try sewing, I think it's just try it. And if it doesn't feel right and it doesn't fit with your personality or where what you desire, then that's okay. You can try something different, right? I just wanted to say quickly, the city of Edmonton, the City Arts Center, they have a ton of cool programming, from like learning how to cook Singapore street food to dancing to pottery, silversmith. If you look on their website, they've just got such a plethora of different things to try. And I just think just keep on honoring yourself and what feels right for you.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for adding that in. We don't have a plug here for the city of Edmonton, but it's good to have resources like that and to know people that have resources. That's really good. And I think also too, like you were saying to try something. How many times do you think, you have to try something before you know that you like it or you don't?
I'd say at least a handful, if not a dozen. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes right away. Like I think there's some things where you're like, not for me, and that's okay, right? Like it's good to honor what feels right for you in the moment. But if it was something like a painting class or a drawing class, don't allow yourself to get turned off just because it was hard the first time. Because the second time it will be easier. The next time it will be even easier, because it's all about muscle memory and using your mind and your hands in different ways that maybe you haven't ever used them before. So I think it's like if it's something that your heart desires, give it a fair chance to see if it will resonate with you and become a hobby.
I love that. And I would even suggest and encourage, if you're going to do like a paint night or some kind of a class, bring your community, like do it with the people you love, right?
Yeah.
The people that you're, obviously are not going to judge you, like the people that you can be, feel safe and comfortable beside doing something that's not your normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's such a fun activity, a girls' night out. I mean, going, mother, daughter, just getting out and just doing something fun. Like it's such a great way to bond and to do something that you did together. Like it creates a memory. And memories are really important today when all of our memories seem to be on social media. Like we don't have photo albums anymore. We don't have that tangible physical memories like we used to. And I think that like I remember me and my mom went on vacation to Montreal. And she's not a painter. She's not an artist. But I said, Mom, let's go to a paint night and let's just go have fun. And so we did. And, we ended up swapping our paintings at the end. So I took hers and she took mine. And because she lived in Florida and I lived here, it was just like every time I looked at it, I thought of my mom. And I was like, oh, yeah, that. And I went back into the memory of how special. So
that sounds so sweet.
Yeah.
I
it's
love
just
that.
Yeah. It creates a tangible memory. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you need our listeners to hear from you today, based on what we were talking about? Do you have any offers to offer?
If they would like to join, I do have some upcoming paint events. They can check on the links that are below in this podcast. And I do private events. I love to cater to whatever kind of event you'd like to have. And yeah, I just encourage you, if you want to get out and be creative, if it's not with me, find something that works with you for you and wherever you reside at, and have fun and just allow yourself to make mistakes. That's the biggest one.
I love that. I think that's probably the best advice I've heard in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be okay with the mistakes. Just don't judge them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we are our worst critic, right? We judge ourselves the worst.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Tamara.
Thanks, Tina. I really appreciate you having me on, and this has been lovely. And I apologize for the technical issues.
Don't you worry. You know what? We all struggle. We all struggle.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. This conversation was such a powerful reminder that confidence doesn't always come from doing more. It often comes from expressing more of who we already are. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to reflect on this. Where in your life have you stopped creating, and what might shift if you allowed yourself to begin again? And if you're a woman who's ready to feel more grounded, confident, and aligned in this next chapter, this is exactly the work I support through the Bloom Room and my coaching spaces. Together, we focus on building confidence from the inside out through clarity, embodiment, and intentional action, not hustle or pressure. You'll find links in the show notes to connect with Tamara and learn more about Creative Spark Art. And of course, to explore ways we can work together inside Confidence in Bloom or in Full Bloom Styling. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend, leave a review, or take a moment to subscribe. It truly helps this podcast grow. Until next time, stay determined, stay present, and keep blooming.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.